Our CTO said this once, and I want to give him credit for saying this. I think it's a beautiful statement. He said, people are not going to get replaced by AI. They're going to get replaced by people who use AI.
People, sometimes going direct is not the best business decision. I don't have a problem with the carrier who has a much greater spread of risk in a larger book of business eating some of those claims on their loss ratio so that I can preserve mine. Any day of the week, I'm going to save tens of thousands, if not over 100,000 in profit sharing for $500. I will do that 10 out of 10 times.
Traditionally, wholesalers have not been able to make the mid-market segment or small commercial profitable. They've built platforms and asked retailers to do the job for them. That's not what we do. We do all the work, we get submissions through emails, and then we do what I call the 1970s telephone switchboard. We do all the automation and connectivity for our retailers so they can sit quietly and know that we're working for them, but still get that level of service that they expect. Our AI agents do not make decisions by themselves. They don't trump the judgment, the discretion, the relationship with the broker. They're like this world's best assistant sitting on the shoulder, following and supporting the broker every step of the way. There's definitely spaces within the P&C that are a very hard market, but also on the specialty lines, we see cyber, we see D&O, those are softer markets now. If there's a carrier that has great coverage and really competitive terms, but they don't have an API yet for whatever reason, because their digital initiatives is slow, relatively speaking, we would do our clients this service if we don't include them in our marketing strategy. So finding the best way, doing the work yourself, finding the best way to work with every carrier partner and to bring that to the retailer doorstep so we can all work together for the best insured outcome. That's what we put on pedestal, and that's what we're trying to highlight.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. Today, I have an absolutely electric guest with me, Sivan Iram from Flow. You may have heard of them, you may not have heard of them, but they have heard you. They've heard you complain. They've seen you lose business because you're not happy with the efficiency and the response times of how the standard wholesalers have been acting over the course of the last couple of years, and specifically in the hard market. So they realized that was a problem. They figured out a way for them to fix that problem using AI, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So if you are one of the literally thousands of producers that I've heard complain about wholesale relationships, how you don't feel valued, how you can't get quotes back in time, when you do, they're not what you asked for, tune in and listen to this, and you can hear how the wholesaler of the future is operating today. So before we get kicked off, I want to have Sivan take just a second and introduce himself and give a little bit of his background so you know who he is, where he came from, and then we're going to get into where he's headed.
Fantastic, David. Thank you for having me today. I am Israeli born and raised. I started my career on the software side, did that for close to a decade, got really interested and curious about the business side of technology, and then spent the next decade working with tech companies, bringing innovation into traditional industries. 3.5 years ago, we started Flow, really with the mission of bringing the same level of enterprise service to the mid-market and small commercial space. We heard retailers complain about very slow, lack of responsiveness. Everybody talks about the black hole. If you do get a response after a few days, then it's very transactional. You maybe get a couple of options, but you don't really get the reason why you go to a wholesaler, which is to get the expertise, to get the analysis, to get the recommendations, as well as market relationships. We started in 21 with that mission in mind. Today, we've grown a team of internal producers that work hand in hand with our technologists to build better tools, better solutions for ourselves so we can provide better service. We focus on commercial lines, cyber liability, management liability, and professional liability. Our goal in the future is going to expand to more P&C lines to provide that level of responsiveness, proactivity, consistency in service, but also the level of expertise. On the tech side, we employ the two most meaningful, I think, technological trends today that are, I believe, a huge catalyst, a huge enabler for the industry. The first one is the ability to do algorithmic underwriting. Again, we don't do the underwriting ourselves. We work with carriers who have APIs or portals or emails. We employ all these ways to go to market. we find that the API space is becoming bigger, more carriers, more lines of business, bigger appetite per line of business. So I think in the future, it's going to allow us to have faster turnaround. We play as the quarterback. We employ all these different ways to do it, but we don't ask our retailers to do it for us, right? Traditionally, wholesalers have not been able to make the mid-market segment or small commercial profitable. They've built platforms and asked retailers to do the job for them. That's not what we do. We do all the work, we get submissions through emails, and then we do what I call the 1970s telephone switchboard. We do all the automation and connectivity for our retailers so they can sit quietly and know that we're working for them, but still get that level of service that they expect.
It's funny when you say the 1970s telephone switchboard, because it always reminds me of John Wick when somebody puts a hit out on one of the characters in John Wick. And I don't know if you've seen the movie or not, but I know plenty of people in the audience have. They're doing the same thing, man. It's like a whole manual process, and it's kind of an interesting thing just to watch. I mean, I remember being a kid, number one, you literally didn't even have call waiting at one point. And then I can remember that, being at my aunt's house, my great aunt rather, and she had a party line. So you now had a phone line that you shared with multiple neighbors, and if you picked up the phone, somebody else likely was on it. You couldn't make a call until that person got off, and you were able to dial out. And I say that only because I think it's a pretty interesting oxymoron that you use the 1970s telephone switchboard reference to something that's probably a little bit more advanced than that on the back scene,
Well,
the back end today.
just to illustrate what we do, and the fact that we take ownership over the work that we need to do instead of carving it out and putting it on the shoulders of our clients. But I do think the telephone is actually a great analogy for something else. You remember how companies figured out that call centers are not profitable, so they started automating it, and so they carved out this task of finding the route to the right department. They carved it out from their own people onto the backs of their clients. And so now we as consumers, we're stuck talking to the phone, screaming representative, representative, and that's just frustrating. We don't go to a doctor for them to give us a system to self-diagnose. We want the doctor to give us the attention, the time, the service that we expect, and then at the end, their analysis, their recommendations, and required care. So that's what we try to do. And again, we don't carve it out and put it on the backs of our clients. We do it ourselves in a very technological, innovative way.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that 100%. As we lay the groundwork here, one of the things I do want to be vocal about for the people listening is I understand that we're in a hard market. I understand that we're not getting the return times that we are used to from our wholesalers, and I understand that that's very frustrating. But I would also ask that you look at things through a different lens too. If we are dealing with reshopping our entire book, imagine what it's like to be that wholesale underwriter who has to reshop their entire book, which is a multiple, probably a double-digit multiple of the size of ours. And we want to get a quick turnaround, but yet we don't provide information. We don't have complete submissions. We're not including narratives and all of that stuff. So if you're doing all of those things to perfection and you're still not getting what you want out of the relationship, or you're looking for a little less friction in the process, I have a feeling that the next 30, 45 minutes is going to bear a lot of fruit for you. So all that being said, talk a little bit about what the user experience is like for an agency that engages with Flow and wants to immediately start sending you business.
Absolutely. The magic in what we do is I started talking about API quoting and the fact that we do it internally to speed up the process. I would say even more so, the most meaningful technological innovation that we're working on is we build an ecosystem of AI agents. I know it's all the rave, but I want to really lean into it, not from a buzz perspective, but from a true value creation perspective. How we employ these AI agents to do tasks for our own people so they can serve faster and better and smarter. So, for example, we've identified multiple tasks that can get done, and we take a base model of AI. We all know ChatGPT. We know it knows English really well. What we do is we teach it insurance. We work with our own internal experts to teach that model insurance so that it can help us perform tasks Imagine this, think of it as the world's smartest assistant, right? I'll give you a few examples to what the AI agents do for our own folks, and then I'll talk about what the experience looks like for our clients. So one thing that we do is every single quote that we get from our markets, we wrap it with a layer of analysis, with quote insights, with recommendations. That it's not transactional. Here's the quote. It's also, what does this mean for your client? If we have multiple quotes, we have an AI agent that knows how to compare the various quotes and to highlight the elements that are better or worse in each quote for this specific insured. It's not this cookie cut high level comparison between two policies. It's specifically in the context of this insured. Another example is we have an AI agent that understands our market appetite really well. We have about 75, close to 80 markets today. We have not only the brochures and underwriting guidelines that they give us, we also have nonstop, constant communication with our markets. 2 days ago, we got a declination from a carrier who said, we don't do EPL monoline, we don't do standalone EPL. That email, that declination gets recorded in our system, goes fed into the agent. So next time there's an EPL standalone, we know to say to the broker, our broker, hey, this market just declined a few days ago. I will highlight and say, stress and say, our AI agents do not make decisions by themselves. They don't trump the judgment, the discretion, the relationships of the broker. They're like this world's best assistant sitting on the shoulder, following and supporting the broker every step of the way. So how does
They
that look?
sound like a caddy. They sound like a caddy in golf.
Absolutely like that. Exactly right. The way that the experience feels like and looks like for our clients is they send a submission through the old trusted email way. It can be a body of the email, it could be with attachments, with the application, supplementals, it can be loss runs, whatnot. We automatically extract information from the email. We triage it to know if it does this fit the box of what carriers and what means of distribution. Does it fit the API for this carrier, the portal for that, and email for that? And then we go to market with that way. We have our own brokers naturally that do that. Again, based off of the work that the AI has done for them. We get all the responses back every single time. We have multiple quotes. We do a very thorough analysis. We create we can also even customize it to the brand of our clients, to the retailer, and we send it out. The emphasis here is not only being expedient and being fast and consistent, is also providing that level of knowledge and expertise. Every single email that leaves Flow has the name of a person on it. It's not an automated AI generated email. It's always, we have accountability internally. Always one of the core principles that we highlight is this human supervision concept where everything is touched by people. It's just the number of touches and the time that the ball in a human court is shorter because the AI assistant does so much for them.
So what I'm hearing, and you're more than welcome to correct me if I missed the point, because I want everybody to hear the point correctly. But what I'm hearing is a common theme that I hear from a lot of people who are using AI in their operations now, and that is you're not using AI to replace a human being necessarily. You're using AI to make that human being more effective at what they're doing. And so I used the example of a caddy because as you're explaining it to me, I mean, I'm literally thinking I'm 150 yards out on a par four, and I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to hit the 7 or the 8, and you're going to give me the wind speed, the slope, what club you recommend me to use, all of those things. But I ultimately am the one who makes that decision. And I think having never worked the desk of a wholesale underwriter before, it's really difficult for me to understand what a day in their life looks like. Like, I'll just be transparent. It's easy to complain about, but difficult to understand because I've never had that responsibility or that job before. But taking that same thought process and translating it, what I'm hearing is you're using AI to get everything you can in terms of information, put that in a nice, neat package, provide it to that underwriter to ultimately make a decision as to whether or not it makes sense to move forward.
100%. And I would say that I think the concerns for, job replacement, they're natural, but I think they're exaggerated. I think many more jobs will be created. Our CTO said this once, and I want to give him credit for saying this. I think it's a beautiful statement. He said, People are not going to get replaced by AI. They're going to get replaced by people who use AI.
100%.
Tool in the toolkit of people, right? You remember how in the 90s everybody used to put on their CV, I'm proficient with Microsoft Excel. You wanted to signal to your future employer that you are inept, you're capable, you know really well the tools of the future. I think that needs to go on CVs. I'm proficient with AI agents. I understand how they work. I give them guidance. With AI, you gotta work with it with an AI assistant like you would with an intern or a very smart assistant. You're very articulate with what you're asking them to do and how you want to get it, and then they do the job, and increasingly better and better and better. But they don't replace, number one, the discretion of knowing what to do. They can't replace the relationship. They can't replace the creativity. They can't replace the expertise that people bring to the table. So really leveraging them to their maximum power, I think, is the way of the future.
Good deal. So let me ask you this. What are the objections you get? Like when you're out on the streets and talking about this with agents, what do they say that would be an objection from them doing business with you?
Well, I think the first response is relief that we're not asking people to go on any portals and logins. I think that's the industry's solution today to the wholesale problem is let's put you on a portal. And I think there's definitely what's called portal fatigue. So the first response is relief. The second one, if there is a concern, is that there's not going to be a person in the loop. People are afraid of being stuck. And the second relief comes when we assure them that yes, in fact, there is a human in the loop. There's human supervision every step of the way. We thought that the concern from us working with AI might be stronger. We're very encouraged and surprised to see that people understand the value. I think that stems from the fact that OpenAI has done a good job making the technology so accessible to people, and they people use um, ChatGPT daily for their work, whether it's nutrition or itinerary or just asking questions around. And I think that people are now familiar with the core technology and they can visualize, they can envision how the model can do a good job, even with more kind of verticalized knowledge like insurance.
What about the people who say they don't trust AI?
Listen, I think caution is merited, is in place. I think that there is, if you know the adoption curve of first adopters and then kind of early majority, late majority, and laggers, that's there for a reason. There's always going to be people who are reactive and going to say, I want other people to show me that it's valuable and I'm going to, join last. I think that is becoming an increasing risk because of the speed of innovation. You risk being late. If you did that with TV or with phone or with faxes, you didn't lose much. I think with the rate that things are changing today, it's faster and faster. So if you say, I'm going to be a lagger, I'm okay not knowing how to set my VCR. I'm okay, not feeling comfortable with certain technologies. I think the risk is bigger with time because of the accelerating rate of innovation. I think again because of what the consumer space sees on the AI's usability and accessibility of the technology. I think that we're not seeing that level of resistance that we thought might.
My response to them is actually pretty simple. You know, I would ask them, do you not check the work that you get in now from a human underwriter that's a human across the entire process? Why would you not check a quote or a policy just the same? Just because AI was involved in the process doesn't relieve us of our responsibility to ultimately sign off on whatever's been issued after selling the deal to our clients.
I love that, David, and I think I echo that, and I want to build on that and say that one of the big differentiators between Flow and many other companies is we don't sell our AI technology. We use it internally to empower our own folks to be faster and better and provide better service. Now, what does that do? It lowers the threshold of risk. If you sell your technology, you need to develop it in-house until it's good enough to release it out. You need that to be 100% accurate. Otherwise, you're liable for the information it gives out, right? You can't sell technology that's not 100% there. But when you're using as an internal tool, when you communicate to your own brokers, you need to be reading what it gives. You need to be giving it feedback and correcting it so it's better. There's a very lower threshold for us to allow ourselves to experiment with capabilities that are not yet necessarily good enough to be sold, but they're definitely good enough to start improving the workflows and the efficiency of our own people, and it becomes better so much faster. It allows us to experiment. We're eating our own dog food in that sense, is that we're building for ourselves, and it just creates, number one, an organization that in the molecular level is a hybrid between insurance experts and technology experts, but also is able to build just a very efficient, well-oiled machine that learns fast, moves very efficiently, builds velocity towards being smarter, more efficient, providing better service.
So how long have you guys actively been employing the AI as part of your process at this point?
We started producing earlier this year in March. It was, the first one is a very modest month. We've been growing like crazy ever since. We're almost tripling our top line every single month since,
Wow.
and we're not slowing down. We have a phenomenal team, a phenomenal president of brokerage, David Dorigiadis, cyber expert, but also a phenomenal sales leader, insurance expert. And he's built a phenomenal team of producers, account managers, inside brokers that are absolutely crushing it. I think the retailers that we work with, we have a saying in Hebrew. I don't know if it translates. It says people vote with their feet. We see retailers vote with their feet in that sense. They're sending us more business. We're getting more and more submissions from every single producer that we get, and then we get this organic introductions in between the retail shops that we work with. Hey John, you got to work with the flow guys. They've done this. The CFO is incredibly happy. You got to meet the flow guys. They're expert, but they with the fastest turnaround I've seen. So we grow organically within these organizations, and then we get more and more logos. More agencies are willing to work with us, and this is in a time, and we should admit this. There's definitely spaces within the P&C that are a very hard market, but also on the specialty lines, we see cyber, we see D&O. Those are softer markets now. Agencies are, relatively speaking, want to go more and more direct as much as they can. They want to, cut the list of wholesalers they work with. And even with that environment, we see ourselves getting on the books of today. We're probably, we've signed up with more than 60 agencies. So it's just been a whirlwind of 9 months, but just very encouraging. We see the responses, and we're inspired by it.
You said something that I need to comment on because the people listening to this need to hear this thought process. But I think that agents I think their desire to go direct is somehow blinding them from making the best business decisions sometimes. And I'm going to be clear about this. Obviously we have direct appointments in my agency, and obviously I want to fill them, and I know what they're really good at and what I'm going to get good quotes and coverage back, service, and all of that. Using cyber specifically as an example, I've got a lot of direct markets that have some level of a cyber offering. It could be an endorsement onto a BOP. It could be a separate cyber policy. In my experience with cyber specifically, your best options are typically going to be in the wholesale market because the forms are far more flexible in terms of the terms and conditions that you get. But where I was headed with that is this. Let's just say that I have a carrier that I have a direct contract with, and let's just say Flo has the same carrier for all practical purposes, and I want to go place my cyber policy for my client directly with my carrier instead of going through Flo. And let's just assume that for the last decade, we've had a really good run with this carrier. We get profit sharing every year. Our contingencies are pegged because we try our best to keep our loss ratio low, and we do everything we can to try and manage that. When we had Zane Goldthorpe from Pro Writers on the podcast, I asked him the question, what is the average value of a cyber claim across general industry today? I'm not going to hold you to the number, but what is it? And he said roughly $4 million. So my question is this, with the average cyber policy that I see for small and medium sized business, I think we can probably agree that an overwhelming majority of them are under $10,000 a year. I was going to say 5, but I know that we can say 10, 100% comfortably. And if I get 15 points for me to go to my direct market, but I only get 10 or something less than 15 to go through a wholesaler, on $10,000 in premium, I'm giving up $500 in revenue to my firm. With the inability for companies to control what happens with ransomware, invoice manipulation that dupes them, and all of the other things that are going on, the likelihood of a large claim is going up every single year. And I can't imagine that cyber is going to stay as soft as what it has been. But my point in all of this is that me going to my carrier that I have the direct relationship with could single-handedly on one policy over a $500 decision blow up tens, if not $100,000 or more in profit sharing or contingency commissions because I was so worried about going direct. People, sometimes going direct is not the best business decision. I don't have a problem with the carrier who has a much greater spread of risk and a larger book of business eating some of those claims on their loss ratio so that I can preserve mine.
Yeah.
Any day of the week, I'm going to save tens of thousands, if not over 100,000 in profit sharing for $500. I will do that 10 out of 10 times.
I mean, it makes business sense to your point, and it does. That's what we see. People are transferring their direct business to us, but not only risk transfer in the sense of having bigger spreads and bigger books, and eating those loss runs. It also, if this mid-market small commercial space is not profitable for wholesalers, it's not hugely profitable for retailers if they go direct. You still need to do all that manual marketing and responses and negotiation. When you get a quote, you have to write up a cover letter to it, explaining to your client what it is. And if it's a $2,000, $5,000 policy, and you only bind 1 out of 4, then in itself, very quickly, you're losing money on it. So what we see people is they say, well, these guys have found a way to be really efficient and to do the work for me. Let me give them my small commercial business, and then let me work on bigger deals. And that is the true, mastery of being a conductor, knowing what work do I want to give out to my partners and maybe do it more efficiently for me. And they give me the confidence, the expertise, the turnaround time that I need. Because I know I can trust that they're going to respond. It's not like the big guys. I send something out and I don't hear for 2 weeks. If that's the case, people want to risk. They don't want to risk it, and they say, "Let me do it, even if it's not efficient. I'll do it myself because I have control." The biggest thing with handing it over to wholesaler is that you're giving up control. Where, well, it's our jobs to maintain that trust in relationship, to give you the confidence that we can, do the work for you, get the best options for your insured, and do it very proactively, in a very communicative way, and let you focus on the bigger deals, the fire drills, the things that need to be bound yesterday, the things that has a huge claim on them, they're very hairy, and you want to work on it yourself because there's a relationship to preserve. And I think when we see people treat their business flow that way, that's one of the reasons we called it the company flow, is to try and kind of bring this dynamism into this segment. When people treat their business flow this way, they're really kind of are able to grow their book and work very efficiently with us as partners.
So one thing, and this is an obvious question that I should have asked earlier on, but do you offer both admitted markets and excess and surplus lines? Because the way you're talking, if people are moving direct relationships, I have to assume you have admitted markets too.
We do, and to be honest, today we have probably I want to say a 55-45% split towards the NS, but we still do very meaningful work on the admitted lines as well, to your point.
What do the most successful relationships that you have so far look like? Like, if you were to say, David, this is the ideal agency for us to work with. If you could build this, we'll take as many of those as you can build. What does that agency look like to you?
We work with various sizes. We have some independent agents, and then we work with even, I want to say two companies out of the top four, if you can imagine those behemoths, we still get business from them because people need the solution that we provide. The ideal relationship is such where people, they need the expertise that we can bring to the table. It's not transactional in that manner. We provide, again, we have world-class experts and leaders in each line of business. It's companies that don't have the same appointments that we have. Naturally, we can expand their carrier network. We focus on being additive. We work with both large staple houses, the Travelers, the Chubbs, the Markells of the world. And then we also have younger capacity providers where they bring something new to the table. Some of them carriers, some of them MGAs, some of the program business. But that's kind of the makeup is, I would say, mid-size brokerage slash agency. A team, I'm going to call it 15 to 45 producers. We work with larger companies, smaller companies, but we really have the opportunity to come in, make an impact, expand throughout the agency, work with multiple people, provide solutions. And with the individuals themselves, it's just folks that are looking for non-transactional relationship, for that trusted partner that can deliver for them every single time.
So from my perspective right now, growth for you is, number one, adding more agency relationships, likely also adding more carrier relationships that you can cater to them. But what else do you see, for growth moving forward, aside from adding more agencies and more insurance options? I mean, do you see the product being, as much as you're able to talk about it, obviously I'm not asking for trade secrets on a publicly produced podcast, but I mean, I also know how technology moves and how quickly it moves, as you've already alluded to. And I know that we could have this conversation 6 months from now, and you will already have an iteration of what today looks like that you have modified and made even better.
Yeah. Those two things that you highlighted, it's probably the two legs that we stand on is the go-to-market and leaning into it more, building more agency relationships. That's number one. Within that category, also building more carrier relationships. I'll quickly say we are a venture-backed company. One of our investors is Munich Re Ventures. It is the investment arm of Munich Re, the largest reinsurance company in the world. That brings a level of relationships and access to carriers that is just unprecedented for a company our age and our size. Again, we've been able in only a year to build more than 70 carrier relationships and have a very robust carrier network. So the insurance side of the house and the go-to-market and trying to work with more agencies and more partners is number one. The second one is the technological investments that we make to make the experience even better. To be able to respond faster in a smarter way, in a more consistent way, and have just high production value to everything that we do, from not only for the quality of materials, from the formatting, customization, white labeling, and so forth, but also, and more importantly, from the expertise level. How can we be most insightful to provide the best analysis that ends up with a recommendation of what our clients can do. We make more and more investments to go wider with our AI agents, but also go deeper and provide even more granular recommendation and expertise.
What have we missed?
It's been a very thoughtful, very broad conversation. For us, really, is trying to communicate our position on how technology and people work together really well to empower, not only our own folks, but our clients to have better outcomes. That's what we do. I think maybe that's one thing that I want to highlight and say, you have all these companies today. I think there's two ends of a spectrum that I see today. I see the incumbents on one side treat the industry in a very traditional way, very human driven and heavy from a kind of lack of efficiency standpoint. And then the other end of the spectrum, I see new companies coming out with all these portals and platforms and promising everything and end up delivering on very little. And I think we strike a very important balance in between. How do we bridge those two things? How do we bring the best of both worlds? The expertise, the creativity, the ingenuity and relationships of people, and then the data-driven analysis, the ability to ingest large amounts of data and build insights off of it and support the human to just do better. That's kind of our way. Um, that's why we don't only go with APIs. I see lots of people say, "Well, get a few quotes back, and we're going to do it, instantaneously." What I've learned, and I think this is important, fast is really important, but instant isn't. It's not as if our agent
100%, because half the time instant's not accurate.
exactly, and it also leaves great um, options off the table because they're not instant. If there's a carrier that has great coverage and really competitive terms, but they don't have an API yet for whatever reason because their digital initiatives is slow, relatively speaking, we would do our clients this service if we don't include them in our marketing strategy. So finding the best way, doing the work yourself, finding the best way to work with every carrier partner and to bring that to the retailer doorstep so we can all work together for the best insured outcome. That's what we put on a pedestal, and that's what we're trying to highlight.
So I know that there are 45 to 50,000 producers and agency principals listening to this podcast. How do they find out more? How do they get set up with you guys to be able to start submitting business and experiencing all the things we've talked about?
Yeah, we make it very easy to work with us. We don't drag people through, signing contracts and whatnot. We tell people, try us out, send us a submission, we'll get you bindable quotes, we'll get from there. For people, I would say go on flowspecialty.com. There's a form there. If you want to email me directly, Sivan@flowspecialty.com. David, or president of a brokerage, David@flowspecialty.com. We'll take your submission. We'll give you the fastest turnaround, the best kind of example of what we can do for you, and we'll take it from there.
Sounds good, man. Well, listen, I don't know what else we can talk about. I feel like we've pretty much hit everything that I had intended to hit. I got to tell you, it's exciting for me to hear how this is working in an area where I honestly didn't even think about it until you had reached out to me. And for everybody's edification that's listening, we had a conversation over either email or LinkedIn. And was it around? Were you at ITC last week?
Yeah, absolutely.
It may have been around trying to get together there, and I was in and out because we had gotten hammered by the hurricane here. So I was there for a short period of time and did not have the chance to get around as much as I would have liked to. But I heard what Sivan was saying, and I told him, I'm like, listen, man, we could go back and forth now, and you can explain this to me, but I can tell that this is enough of a difference maker for the industry. I'd rather just jump on the podcast, record it, share it with everybody else, and see what y'all think about it too. So I would encourage you to check out Flow Specialty's website. And you heard him, he's not going to drag you through the ringer, make you sign a bunch of contracts and stuff. Take it for a test drive, see what you think about it, and then make your decision from there. If there's something that's been common across all of the different AI platforms that we have talked to on the podcast or that I've talked to in one-off conversations, you just said the same thing every single one of them says, and that is, look, we don't want this to have a lot of friction for you to do business with us. In fact, we just want you to take it for a test drive first. We're going to make it really easy for you to do that so that you can prove concept. And that's what's going to breed more and more agencies wanting to work with you. And I think it's a really smart approach for any company in the insurance industry that's leaning on AI as part of their process to do that, because I think it still creates animosity and anxiety for the humans some have been around since the days where you typed up the policy on a typewriter yourself, letting them see what it's like and not really having a downside to that is probably pretty smart. So I would encourage anybody out there that's looking for a different solution or honestly just wants to find one that's better, which is what we should be doing, is constantly evaluating what do we offer, what are the tools we have, and how can I improve on them. Give Flow Specialty a try, see what they have to offer for you. And then listen, if it works out great, message me back and let me know. I love hearing about success stories for people who try out products where we feature the CEOs and TOs of these companies on the podcast, because I can assure you that's going to continue to happen, but you help me refine who I bring on as a guest as a result. And I have absolute confidence you're going to have a great experience with Flow if you check them out. So Anything else you want to say before we wrap up, Sivan?
I don't think so, David. It's been great. I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Everybody else, we'll catch you next time. See ya.